You can take some courses and be esoteric. Ooh, exciting. So we get those things, but enough joking around. We need to get some serious questions. Like I said, is that a proper cup of tea? And we will find out right after I find the button here. Right now. Welcome to the Three Beards Podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is right.
Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, everybody. That's it. We're here, except for Chris. I'm not sure where he's at. So he's definitely got to be here for next week. That's the thing. Is I'm gonna if I have to nail him to a chair and force it, tie him there and make sure that he's there to see everybody. It's like he'll be there for next week. If I have to.
I mean, that's up to Chris, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. It is.
Yep. Right.
It was rhetorical. Now so we got everybody. King, April, Derek's here, M.A. Allen, Ouroboros here, Maria. So we got Erilyn, she's here too. So that's appreciate everybody checking in. Mark's obviously here live, so he's not having to type the chat. So, but like I said, it's late over there.
Long.
Yeah. I know if you look behind him, he's got some interactive scenery behind you where you'll see some flashes. That's
NEM, a twister.
That's right.
Yeah, you can see the
Is
storm.
it getting scary?
Yeah, the storm is approaching the house. So if I disappear, it's an electrical problem.
What's up, MA?
Yeah, no,
it's fine. Don't play with the electricity though.
Yeah. Let's bring on the guest of the hour here because I know it's late and we don't want to keep her holding it so long there. Maria Wheatley, how are you?
I'm very well. And yes, I've had Earl Grey tea and it's been absolutely delightful. So
all right, now is it a proper cup of tea?
It's a proper cup of tea.
All right. For anybody that doesn't know that, like I said, what is the proper way to construct a proper cup of tea? So that way.
You boil the kettle, you put the tea into the pot, and then you pour in the water, and then you add a little bit of splash of milk into a cup, and then you pour the tea into the cup. That's how we do it in what's called the Wessex way. I'm in an ancient county called the Kingdom of Wessex, and that's how we do it there. But how they do it in the north, that's a different story.
And I know there's people that do it here right here, but a lot of people in England don't use diapers for their tea. They don't use the bags.
No.
They use it's loose tea in the things. Yeah, they don't use the little paper diapers.
Little paper diapers. Yeah.
Yeah, no Lipton tea bags, for up there. That's kind of frowned upon if you whip out your little Earl Grey packet and just rip it open, shake the little thing, drop it in a cup. They kind of look at you funny.
They use
Kind of like it's kind of like going to Italy and snapping the pasta.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Let's face it, that's not going to happen.
So I want to show, like I talked about here, I want to show it up here on screen for everybody that could see it here too. So it's, yeah, so here's the Avebury experience where you can go in there, not only go to the shop right here, and you can see this might be what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, it is.
Possibly. Yeah, so take this, the secret history, and it was a little bit of a quip, but it is true. Why does the Crown hate this book? It's like, so if you like this one, as you can see, she's got a little bit of interest and knowledge when it comes to Stonehenge and stone circles. Yeah, so you can go there and you can purchase this one, including this one. So you definitely have. And I'm not sure, Brian, ask your question, sir.
Yes. Oh, well, I always ask,
early.
where can somebody get an autographed copy of your books? Is that possible?
Absolutely. I mean, if you go to my website, that's the best way to do it. And I can, personally sign, and I can sign a copy. So yeah, just go to my website, theavebyexperience.co.uk. We say co.uk in the UK, or esotericcollege.com, or even my landing platform, which is mariawheatley.uk. So I'm a Brit, mariawheatley.uk.
There you go.
All right. So there you go. So we have, all right. So now let's start with like the big burn. When Mark said it, that's what stuck in my head. And I really wanted to keep with that one. So what is it about, actually happened? I mean, so you basically got your books pulled from the shop?
That's right. I mean, I've been writing for English Heritage Stonehenge Shop for, oh my gosh, about sort of 10 years or so now. And I bring out the secret history of Stonehenge, and within literally about a day of them reviewing the book, all of my products were banned from Stonehenge Shop. And I think it's because, when you're getting close to the truth, as I'm sure you guys are fully aware, when you get close to the truth, that's when doors start to close in certain establishments. And that's what happened to me therein.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing too. It's just, do you think it had something to do, because it seems like anytime you challenge the narrative with Egyptology, because that is such a big tourist thing with England anyway, but just we'll say they've borrowed a few artifacts, in the natural history museums. So, and anytime you challenge the narrative, because his name's failing me. Is it Zawahiri?
Yes, I know you're talking about the
Egyptologist, the one where I don't care how many times specials come on. I'm like, if I have to watch another hour special where they take you through digging, unearthing some unlost tomb, and all it is a pile of dusty bones and not something exciting, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm like, I can't get that hour and a half back.
Absolutely. And I think that happens over here as well, because, it's only a few archaeologists that are actually, allowed to dig in certain sites, and they have to, go through UNESCO, and they have their own narrative. So, for example, most people that recently that have excavated Stonehenge is Mike Parker Pearson of UCL London, that's University of College London. And he will say one narrative, and that narrative is the same as if it's in Egypt. It's all about the dead. It's about the people that have passed. And that's the narrative. And if we change the narrative, that's when doors get closed.
Do you want to call King Chucky and change this?
Well, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think if I challenge, I've actually written the last time. You see, at Stonehenge, it was said that in 1624 that an architect to James I called Inigo Jones, they apparently took a stone from Stonehenge, the second altar stone, and took it to St. James's Palace in London. They stole a stone in effect. And the last person to have looked and gone through this trail of where has it gone was an archaeologist called William Cunnington. And William Cunnington wrote to St. James's Palace in London. And just for the American audience, prior to Buckingham Palace being built, St. James's Palace was the royal residence, long before Buckingham Palace. So William Cunnington wrote to St. James's Palace and said, where's this altar stone? The second one, can we have it back? And the royal door was closed. And the only person that has written to St. James's Palace since 1930 is me, asking for it back. I haven't yet had a reply. Will I have a reply? I don't know. I await with interest.
So now has anybody seen that stone recently?
No, but it was completely documented in 1624. James I was the King of England. He was James VI of Scotland. He incidentally whipped up the witch frenzy that eventually went to Salem in America, for example. So he was there. He was the first person to dig alongside the Duke of Buckingham and Indigo Jones, like I mentioned. They were the first to dig at the center of Stonehenge. And that's where they claim to have found the second altar stone, which English heritage deny ever existed, but it's been documented in ancient manuscripts. And then they tell you where they took it. It got carted away, meaning carted on horse and carriage, carted away to St. James's Palace. So we know that that's where the trail ends.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if like that was like the key. It's almost like the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah,
what's like it was just yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about Stonehenge is, you see, we all think we know Stonehenge because we are fed an image of it by English heritage, and it goes back to 1724 with William Stukeley, for example, and they tell us this is what Stonehenge looks like. But if we really start to look at the earlier documentation away from William Stukeley, away from 1724, then we start to see a slightly different Stonehenge with more stone settings and with another altar stone, for example, and a brilliant white chalk bank that surrounded it. Today we can see Stonehenge from the road, from the A303, but let's go back to the time when the antiquarians were there. There was a huge chalk bank 10 foot high surrounding Stonehenge. It was a very secretive place that got eroded and it got ploughed away. So now we see Stonehenge as being open, but it wasn't like that originally. It was enclosed. It was secretive.
Now, do you kind of those ones? I mean, I don't know the validity of this. I was when I was reading about it, somebody speculated too that there might have been. I don't really want to say marker stones, but there might have been orientation stones along those mounds.
Oh, yes. I mean, everything around the Stonehenge environs has alignments, and it has star alignments, sun alignments, and especially moon alignments. Especially Stonehenge is more orientated to the moon. And if you bring the barrows around Stonehenge into that, it's quite fantastic because surrounding Stonehenge was 1,000 mounds. It was the largest burial ground in Europe. But if we say, how many physical stars can you see with the naked eye? It's around 800 to 1,000. So some people speculate that it was like a planisphere of stars that surrounded Stonehenge, which has been mooted since the 19th century. Yeah,
I think I'm trying to remember the last time when we had you on, if I talked about the standing stones, because that's one of the things too, along that there is a huge,
trilithons.
Yeah, just they are everywhere. I mean, they've been really popular, especially here in the U.S. stuff with Diana Gabaldon, Outlander series. That's one of those things that's really got a lot of people that normally wouldn't have paid attention, wouldn't have cared. Now, they're walking up, they could take the trip so they can go put their hand on the stone and trying to hopefully they can magically transport and get their Jamie. But it's not, it's not happening. But it's just one of the all jokes aside, do you find that that there's some connection to like a central place like Stonehenge, or is this one like these are mini versions of that? Like as people have moved tribal wise, they kind of tried to build their own version wherever they were at.
When it comes to the very large stone settings and stone circles in the British Isles, the largest are in the Neolithic. They're the oldest, so they date back about 5,500 years. The smaller the stone circles get, they become late Bronze Age, for example. But one thing about Stonehenge, it is completely unique to any other stone circle, and it has the trilithons that surround the center of the monument. So Stonehenge, in effect, has 30 linteled stones, creating a beautiful stone circle that was highly polished and very silver and pinkish looking. It was a very colorful place, inside of which you had 5 trilithons. I think there was an extra trilithon there, making 6, like Indigo Jones drew out. And I've got tattooed on my arm. Indigo Jones's version of Stonehenge has an extra trilithon. But here's the thing. You've got to remember that before English Heritage, UNESCO were formed, who ran Stonehenge? And it was the Ministry of Works, a government department that ran Stonehenge. And there was one stone setting, it was called Trilithon 51 and 52 for the geeks out there. They like numbers on stones. And what was found was that the creator of Stonehenge, who was a custodian, a tour guide, he was called Tom Gorey. He basically was a custodian from about 1930 to about 1950. He knew Stonehenge like the back of his hand. And he claimed that in 1950s, for example, that's Indigo Jones' version of the 6 trilithons. I'll talk about the missing trilithon in a moment. At Trilithon 51, he claimed that Tom Gorey, you could put your arm right the way down into the inside of this standing stone. He's our witness number 1. And then he said a most curious thing. He said that no matter what the weather was, whether it was a drought, whether it was a really hot day, whether it was a rainy day, that hole that you could put your arm down about 2 feet inside of a massive trilithon would fill with water. And people started to say that water was healing. It could cure eczema. It could cure the falling sickness, which back then was called epilepsy. And so people started to gather there. And when they gathered, Ministry of Works, the government department didn't like this. And even though it was renowned for healing, they filled that hole up with concrete and plastic so no one could experience those healing energies again. And Tom Gorey was aghast about that. He said, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. So I think Stonehenge, to some regard, has been completely defaced.
It's interesting. I was there. Unfortunately, when I went to my trip to Bath and Stonehenge, it was thick as pea soup, the fog.
It often is.
But to my benefit, because I went right over those ropes and I walked through it, and didn't get caught doing that. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's always been a desire to physically put your hand on something, but I noticed something that's very interesting about Stonehenge, and I do believe you are correct. There are missing stones that are associated with it, not just the ones they stole.
Absolutely.
And my theory is that it was designed for acoustic celebrations, and maybe even transportation. The way that the followers would go in there, and the fact that it's in the bowl and the sound would bounce off. One, sound frequency vibration does aid to healing. 2, the winds blowing through there now even will aid to healing because they create sounds through there. But there's a theory about using sound frequency and vibration not only to lift these heavy monolithic stones like they did in Egypt, but also as a transporter or a portal opener. So that's one of my theories there. I can't prove it, because if they don't want your book up there, they're not going to want me in there.
Well, Maria covers Geoffrey of Monmouth quite a few times in his um, descriptions of the use of levitation.
Well, yeah, sound frequency and vibration can be used to levitate tons, like huge monolithic stones. But it's also, when you put all this together, there is an energy that's created, and it could trigger off just on the tones, the various tones. And you can do this with vocals.
And
You know,
I also think as well, you know, when Pythagoras discovered the music of the spheres, that's how the planets in their orbits create mathematical musical sound ratios. That's what Pythagoras discovered. And then Kepler came along and said the music of the spheres, and he expanded the theory a little bit. Pythagoras was said in legend he could hear the music of the spheres, and so that's how the planets move. And Kepler said the soul could hear it. What I discovered at Stonehenge is the concentric stone settings that you have at Stonehenge, they create those musical harmonics, those sounds and those frequencies. So, for example, if you've got the lintled stone circle, which has the famous stones on top, and then the blue stone circle, it creates a gap. That interval, that gap, is called the major third in music, and its mathematical ratio is 5/4. Now, that increases your consciousness. That's why in Gothic cathedrals across Europe, in churches, everybody sung to the major third. It increases your consciousness and your emotions. Now, that's not just the only sound frequency at Stonehenge that I discovered. So yes, you're on the right track. All of these different places within Stonehenge, standing here, standing there, they allow different aspects of our consciousness to rise to the fore.
Yeah, it's incredible what sound and frequency and vibration do for you. There's all this talk now about the mud floods and these worlds that were around higher tech than we had, and how churches are used to actually retune your body's frequency. And if you take in consideration the Druids, who are, this is the original, bad boys and girls of this type of theories and actions. I mean, the things that would be done would be mind-blowing today.
There's a silly theory.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, the Druids, for example, I mean, they were much later than Stonehenge because it was the Neolithic and the Bronze Age, but the technology went backwards. So the more forward you go in the British Isles in a timeline of what was created, it actually is backward technology. So the further back we go, the larger the stones were moved. So, for example, in the Neolithic, the largest stones were moved. In the Bronze Age, the smaller stones were moved. It was a backward technology. And the further back we go, and especially if we push the timeline back with Stonehenge to 10,000 BC to, sites in Turkey, for example, that's the timeline. Exactly. That's the timeline we should be looking at. In fact, with Silbury Hill, and I know Mark lives near quite close to a massive mound that's very similar to Silbury, which I'm sure he will touch upon in a moment. When we go back to look at the artifacts at the base of that mound, they go back to 12,000 BC. That was an independent researcher got there. That's the same timeline as Turkey. But we say over here, everything's 2,500 BC. Let's name the pyramids 2,500 BC. And it goes on and on like a mantra that has gotten out of control.
This is what I've been saying for a while. I always challenge Craig. Craig probably hates me for it, but he's more, he's always like, well, I read it in this and NASA this. And I'm like, if you believe the science and if you believe the history books and the fossil record, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have to go beyond this. I mean, there is a Stonehenge at the bottom, I believe, of Lake Michigan.
Yes.
They discovered it in Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
So this is a culture that has been here long before anybody else was here. And they knew something. This is one of the reasons why they led to the portal theory, because there are other areas, there's certain symbols that are found in multiple cultures. And the folklore and stories is things appear here. This is where people appear and disappear. And if you can use sound frequency and vibration to, create a portal at the right spot, it just could be a window.
Exactly. And I think it's no mistake, and I've said this for, decades, it's no mistake that Stonehenge is surrounded by around 16 military establishments. And you have Nevada, in Nevada Area 51, just beyond Stonehenge, you have no-go military-owned land that no civilian can go on, equating to Area 51. So, I mean, the most sites in the British Isles on the Salisbury Plain, that's Area 51, equivalent to you guys, no-go area. You've got over 2,000 sites alone that are in a no-go area. And what's going on there? I'd like to be allowed to go in there. Can I? No, I can't. I'm a civilian.
Good luck.
You get transported back out.
Yep. And what's interesting is, in relationship to these mounds, Maria, how much, we'll call it paranormal or activity, and that paranormal includes ghosts, residual hauntings, UFOs, strange creatures, and so on. Look at all these areas and look what happens on the outskirts of it. You're not that far from Bath, if I'm correct, from where Stonehenge is, and there is Roman soldiers that appear. You can hear them, and they disappear going down the street. Everybody knows about it, but I guess after a while, it's just the bloody Roman soldiers. Go on, it's tea time. Let's move to the pub. But I mean, like, the correlation between these sacred locations or these spots is huge. And of course, the government doesn't want you to, we can't let Maria come out. We have to control the narrative. Nope. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, Bath was an ancient Celtic name called Carbaden. It's the city of Bath, of Baden. And they are, very special places where you have a certain type of geology. You're on, solid chalk bedrock. The stones at Stonehenge didn't go into the earth. They went into solid chalk bedrock socket holes, and that makes it very, very magnetic to a certain regard. So yes, and that chalk bedrock spreads right across Bath, and it creates a kind of very unusual mixture, and you put stones into that, and you have a good formula.
And Bath is in another volcano.
Yeah, but Bath is wonderful. I mean, it's absolutely
Beautiful
gorgeous.
place.
It's a gorgeous, and the architect of Bath was called John Wood, and he went to Stonehenge, and he got so inspired by Stonehenge. The Crescent. Did you go to the Crescent, which is a really famous horseshoe shape? That's based on the trilithons of Stonehenge. He got inspired by the place. That's what he designed Bath on.
Yeah, it's the exclusive neighborhood on top of the hill.
Very exclusive.
Yes. I mean, take Salisbury Hill. It really now go back to the question that Craig was asking. I was kind of thinking, what is the significance of the stone that they removed? Because clearly now, if you hear all this, it lays credibility to, like, what's on that stone, what petroglyph, what material, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, when we go back, to the early written records of what was occurring at Stonehenge, it is very hit and miss. It really is. You have to go through different manuscripts. But that type of stone that was taken was a form of sandstone that was imported to Stonehenge from about 150 miles away in a remote part of Wales. So they were selecting stones that were 3 times more magnetic than any other stone in the British Isles to take to Stonehenge alone. and they would place them on particular earth energy patterns and lay crossings and things like that. And it's a bit like earth acupuncture. They would literally be kind of put into a particular area, and that's what gives them their strength, and that's what gives them their power. So it's not just one thing. And beneath Stonehenge is a massive, massive aquifer, like you get beneath Avebury, like you get beneath Egypt, for example. And so all of this adds to a kind of cocktail, if you will, of energy that releases itself through the stones. And that, I think that's the power of Stonehenge. It's where it is. The ancients were looking for particular energy patterns because an aquifer releases a huge circular energy pattern of like a spiral that water diviners have known since 1899.
Yeah, there's, you know, you hit the nail on the head with Egypt and what's going on there. Everybody thinks, oh, it's where they buried the pharaohs. Nothing was buried there. There's no evidence to anything being buried there, anyone being buried there, but there is evidence of acoustics and different frequencies and channels and what look like at that one part of the king's chamber at the top, there was a small room, and they don't know what was in there, but if you measured it and you compared it to something called the Ark of the Covenant in its measurements, it would fit right in there.
I know there's something very special about being in the king's chamber alone, in the queen's chamber, and I've been into the subterranean chamber as well, beneath the Great Pyramid. And there is something that kind of is very similar in terms to places like Stonehenge. They have the same kind of earth energies. They have the same kind of feeling. And what I always think is very surprising and intriguing about ancient Egypt is not far from Saqqara, you have the Serapeum with those massive 12-foot long coffins that each weigh 100 tons. And they have those lids on top of them. And what we told by Egyptologists, they were for the Apis bulls to go into. And that's obviously ridiculous. And you have researchers like Brian Forster, they come out with an alternative narrative. And I think these mysteries keep us all going into what was going on. And when I take people on tour to Egypt, we always have, private access to these places, and they are incredible.
Well, that's the thing about those things, is just how did they get a high polish on granite?
Yeah.
Using basic, copper and bronze tools.
Absolutely. And the lines are dead straight. They're laser-like in Egypt.
It's like one of those things, like, if you watch History Channel, it's because it's aliens. And it's like, no. I'm like, we find Göbekli Tepe, these ones, we've seen these things. It's there was lost knowledge that humanity possessed.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm one of the biggest fans. We're not the first civilization to roam this thing. There's been many before us. And the problem is, it's like most things happen is like even now, with the threat of World War III happening, if nukes start popping off, most of the stuff that we're talking about right now will be lost to the dustbin of history. They won't know how to make computers, how to make phones. They won't know how to do all this stuff. We will instantly, within a couple of months, will be knocked back into basically the bow and arrow Stone Age type thing. And the only people that will survive in the beginning is going to be the people that know how to make medicines, how to make this. These are going to be the ones that survive. But as those people die off, you'll get back to the same point where then it relapses again. You're going to have somebody thousands of years now, they're going to find the Washington Monument. And they're going to be, look at this massive monolith. Who was this great civilization that built this structure? And all it was a civilization before. It's like we have down here. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of the Coral Castle.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
And that's one of the things, like Göbekli Tepe. There's a really good chance that what that man discovered, he figured out how to do, was probably the same techniques that a lot of these civilizations prior were using to lift these things, because they've shown there's a way to do it, but there's no proof that these civilizations were building these massive levers and stuff and these massive objects to lift these things into place. There's no proof of that. What there is proof of is that they have oriented these giant stones that have been roughly hewn from their location, like you said, and brought to this spot because of their properties. Who would know that? It would be the Maria Wheatley who survived these cataclysmic events that knew if we use this in this orientation, this is going to help do this thing. And that's what they've sought to do, to try to revert.
Absolutely. I mean, and also the stones at Stonehenge were highly polished. We're talking about, places like in Egypt, like granite being polished. They really were. And the color contrast was quite striking as well. So the outer lintel stone circle was a silvery pink color, now we know. And then you would walk inside of the stone circle and you come across the blue stones and they would be very dark colored, flexed with white. And that would have looked stunning. And then the altar stones, they would have been green and flexed in garnet. You're talking about a very highly colorful place. And what I also discovered,
how cool would that be to see?
It would have been amazing. Now, see, it's surrounded by a 6-foot wall of white chalk bank. That's how archaeologists know it stood inside of that. Like I said, a secretive place. But here's the thing. Archaeologists have noticed at other henges that they were carved and sculptured in concentric stone circle patterns, chevron patterns, and spiral patterns. And what I have always noticed around these ancient sites, like Stonehenge, and even in Egypt, actually, you have ochre, and these are painted pigments. You can have yellow ochre, red ochre, brown ochre, and I think the sculptured carvings they did on the henge bank were probably coloured as well, and allowing us to see a very colourful place, and that is not beyond the bounds of possibility. So I see Stonehenge as being a very colourful place with all of these symbols on a white chalk bank that is really a canvas for artwork.
What Alan said, the Rosetta Stone was a massive discovery. But no, it's kind of like the Egypt. I was Maria, while we were talking a little bit of Egyptology, I'm of the believer that the ancient Egyptians found the pyramids and the Sphinx. Because in any civilization, you don't digress. It's like right now, as our civilization, we're not making steam engines anymore. We're not making horse-drawn buggies. Like we were used to. Everything's progressing. We have electric. Everything is steadily getting here. If you look at Egyptology, what the Egyptologists tell us is that no, they did these things. The pyramids, the little step pyramids in front, those ones were built after the Great Pyramid. So they suddenly just stopped caring about our, architecture. They just suddenly we've already done the big one. The things are getting worse. So I think what they found, they tried to recreate, and they couldn't do it.
It's like future generations will only try to imitate Maria's book.
That's right.
It just can't get any better.
It won't work.
But I think you're right. That happened over here as well. You have the massive stone settings of the Neolithic, like you're saying, the Great Pyramids, perfection. And tonnage, and then later the smaller stone settings. They couldn't replicate the earlier civilization that put those stones in, and we know that they're divided by hundreds, if not thousands of years anyway. So if you see a stone setting like Avebury or Stonehenge, you have the larger ones go in first and then the other ones add to it. So yes, I agree with that. And also you get other researchers like Brian Forster, they say the cartouches that were put on to certain monuments in ancient Egypt, they were so much later, like Ramesses. Well, a bit like me saying I go to Egypt, Maria Wheatley was here 1974 or something. They did that afterwards, and so it was a blank canvas. Then the cartouches, then the hieroglyphs came on it, and I'm in agreement with that. I think it's far, far older.
And you're talking about civilizations throughout. First of all, if you looked, it's come up before. There is a structure, two structures in the Grand Canyon that look very much like the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid. The scene right there with the Sphinx in the front and the Great Pyramid in the back. But you're talking about cultures that were mouth to ear. And they didn't, write this down. You had to remember the task. So whoever built these probably was mouth to ear. They built them and they didn't even bother putting down like the instructions, like, garbage goes out every Wednesday, and tip the paper boy or whatever. And then you're right. They come in and like, what is this? So they make their own, use their imagination to say, this is what this is. This is the gods that are here. We see a lion with a head on it. They must be a god. It's craziness. Don't believe what they tell you in school, kids.
Well, that's what I said, because I'm just showing a picture like for people that don't realize. You can see the three that are in front. Those are in nowhere near the skill that was the ones prior. And so this is something that it's this right here in itself as a picture should be proof that whoever built the Great Pyramids was not the same civilization that built these three in the front. These are completely different things. And that's why I said, I think the ancient Egyptians came across these and they tried their best to recreate it.
And there's reports throughout history that what you're seeing there with the Great Pyramids, they didn't look like that. They were covered in stone, and they had the dome, the top portion was covered and in polished, quartz and metals. And they just were like, where the hell did this come from?
Well, you can see it just like here. You can see the difference on the top.
Yeah, and it's, I don't like the Egyptian geologist that runs, he's on every one of the shows. I forgot his name, but like you were saying,
Hawass.
Yeah. It's like it's Zahiri I want to say is his last name, but yeah, it's just
sound like, I know everything, and he tries to make everything exciting, even when they say, well, that says made in China. Yes, he would say made in China because it's, he just doesn't. It's Egypt, we're the greatest, and that's it. And I guess that's part of doing your job, but nothing like if you do something contrary to what goes on with the antiquity department, you could probably get killed in Egypt just talking about it.
Oh, absolutely. And Hawass, he is the kind of main curator of Egypt, so everything goes through him. So you could have any find and it would go through him. Yeah, a bit like over here. If you have new finds in Avebury, it goes through two archaeologists. If it goes through Stonehenge, it goes through their archaeologists. But if they were finished off in this brilliant white limestone, the pyramid. Yes. And some people say a gold cap to the top. But like I was saying earlier, with places like Stonehenge and Avebury over here, they were literally sculptured out of the solid chalk bedrock. And you're having to say, okay, you've got Avebury, 1,088 feet of henge in diameter, and at Stonehenge, about the whole henge, not the actual stone circle, is about 880 feet. And they tell us that was prized out of the solid chalk bedrock using antlers. And when you look at how that chalk was smoothed off, that it's very difficult to prize out with these antler picks and this low technology. And recently they've analyzed the antler picks that apparently did all of this, and they weren't. They were highly polished. They were shamanic. They weren't used to prize out chalk. So we have to then ask ourselves, what sort of technology was used to make those henge banks?
Yeah, it was as we were just talking, kind of the Egyptian thing too. Have you, the same way like their recreations, weren't the same. Yeah, you yourself, you can tell the difference, can't you? Just when you go there, just the feel and everything that they're off. That they're just basically appearance only.
Yes, I mean, I do think, with ancient Egypt, that even in places like the Serapeum, we're only seeing half of what is there. And apparently, some researchers say all of those gigantic coffins or whatever they are, weighing 100 tons, that had later hieroglyphs put on them, they go on for mile after mile after mile, which is being boarded off in ancient Egypt. Many people moot. So I think, when we look to these places, we're only seeing what sometimes we're allowed to see. For example, some people say when you go to the Sphinx in ancient Egypt, the stelae in front of the Sphinx has two sphinxes either side like that. And a lot of people say, where's the second Sphinx? Was there a second Sphinx?
Like the
And if
altar stone.
yeah, like the altar stone, because there was two of them, and our guide, our Egyptian guide to Stonehenge, that's the Serapeum. I mean, look how laser-like the technology was used to carve that out. I mean, and bearing in mind the age of this, and it's suffered from wear and tear, as it were. They're absolutely perfect.
I mean, they're
Oh,
flush. I mean, they're not. Like I
yes,
said, even with
perfect with
wear, you would
metal.
have, you'd have uneven spots. I mean, this is level corners, and it's like, tell me how you did that with a chisel.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
mean, if you cut the top off and you have a top piece and a bottom piece, and you were to go back and forth friction wise with a whole bunch of people or whatever, that would actually act as a sander, but it still doesn't explain how the hell you cut out the metal. How did you cut out that metal? How did you make that right angle? How did you, it's just,
Well, even sanding it down, it's like, how did you keep the straight edge?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely, and the smoothness, and if we can't, address these, and we look at that to say that this is ancient technology, sophisticated technology that was used throughout the ancient world, not just in one place, but throughout the ancient world. Which you have to then ask the question, where was this technology originated from, and who was using it and why? And when we look at this, it is perfection.
Yep.
oh yeah, that's you. This would be something that you would just even modern technology. It's like the modern people that carve out stuff, they would have a hard time
For
doing
real.
that even now. To get it to this perfection. Because
Mm.
you'd still have somebody there'd make a mistake, like with a water jet. There would be something that would have been uneven, but for this thing to be perfectly, it's like Brian said, regardless of explanations, how do you explain the perfect carve out
Mm.
in the center?
And if you
How
were
do you
cut,
chisel a perfect 90 corner?
how
I
do
go,
you
how
get
do you?
that angle so it's smooth without nothing being on the on the top between the flat portion and the angled portion? You can't do that.
And
You
they're
need
underground.
machines. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's the biggest thing, is like it would
Underground.
have to have, like, even modern, they don't even know how to use like a modern crane system, how they would have even gotten it into that position.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they came from 180 miles away in Aswan, so they were transported all of that way, 100 tons each, to where they are, not far from Saqqara. I mean, that alone, transporting that, is a feat in
Oh
itself.
yeah.
Well, Jaron
And
says you do it with slaves. There's no way. There's no way you move 100-ton object in the position that it would have to go to get down to where this location is. So the only thing that we can guess, and Marie, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think the current theory is that it was carved in place and not brought in, because they're like, how was this even possible? That they're thinking that this object was brought, was here, and they did all the carving in place.
I would beg to differ on that. I don't know for a fact, but they already know what stone it is and where it comes from and where it's related to in the area.
Yeah.
They know it has to come from a certain point, but it's like people don't want to think like, well, maybe there are aliens. Which culture did this? What people, what entities, what beings were here involved in it? Because it's clear that some strange star people have been mentioned in multiple cultures coming here and introducing even the legend of Atlantis, which there are several, there's several different tweaks of it, allude to them not being of this earth and allude to them from being elsewhere. So
yeah, the granite for there came about 180 miles away. I mean, it is absolutely astonishing, the feat of that alone. And this is the thing about the ancient world. We look back and we're looking to try and solve how these ancient mysteries were in occurrence. And that's where, a lot of researchers come in and find out fact after fact that the archaeologists are in ignorance of, like Hawass, you were talking. He will do one narrative and one narrative alone.
I could just picture the Egyptian union foreman with a cigar in his mouth and the headpiece on. I'm not moving that right now. We're in between. I don't got enough guys for this one. Just think about that. How do you motivate enough people? Not only that, where are you getting enough wood to roll it on? Because that would be one of the other logic pieces is that's what they said. Oh, they put logs in front of logs, but that is so heavy it would crush every log they put underneath it.
They tried to move bluestone in about sort of 1970s with Professor Richard Atkinson, because they came from 170 miles away in Wales to go to Stonehenge. So he got a lot of, public school boys, and he said, we're going to heave and hoe them using rollers and, pieces of leather and rope, and they couldn't move it that far. They actually couldn't. They did this big experimental archaeology, and it couldn't be moved. But then when you look to some places in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, Callanish, there's no trees, and you've got massive stone circles. So you can rule out that roller method there.
Yeah.
Right.
I know they've done the Easter Island. They did that one. They figured out that they think that they walked them.
Yes, and that is shown actually by some cultures that they did walk them along. And you've got the Madagascar culture, which a lot of the archaeologists in Britain look to, because they do kind of move very large stones across long distances, but it takes a lot of people and a lot of effort.
Yeah, and you're not walking like that sarcophagus. That's the thing. It's even if you did, you wouldn't have that almost like you said, laser cut looking perfection. Where it's polished, because you'd have it all marred up from. Yeah, if everybody wants, you can go on YouTube and watch it. They actually did it, and they took a relative slab, and when they got it, they actually got the motion, and then they could actually sit there and just do this little walk. And it was actually pretty cool that they figured out this is how they positioned those. And I'm going, that's pretty ingenious, and that's always been proof for me. It's just because we don't understand it doesn't mean alien. Doesn't mean, given knowledge from the thing. It's like, there's a good chance that most of this was a prior civilization that had this, they had this knowledge. We just don't know how they did it. It's like the lead glass in the churches. We don't know how to recreate that. We know what they did. We just don't know how to do their process.
And it's the encodement into stone circles. So, if we just go back to Stonehenge, the blue stone circle is 79 feet, 0.20 inches. That's quite precise. And if you change the feet to miles and multiply it by 100, you have 7,920 feet. That's the diameter of the earth. So you have to say, how did the ancient peoples know the diameter of the earth? For instance. So, all of these different things add to a very wise, sophisticated culture that created these ancient sites worldwide.
Right. And then if you consider the fact where they're located and the significance celestially, whatever did this, whatever culture was responsible for it, had the ability to view this planet off the planet. They were not on the planet. They had the ability to get that ultimate bird's eye view. I don't want to be the guy from Ancient Aliens, but sounds like aliens.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the ancient people were very good navigators. I think they traded a lot. I think they were very good at interacting with each other as well. And I think we kind of look at humanity and say that they're not that intelligent. When I think the further back you go, the probably more intelligent the people were, whether it's from Atlantis, lost civilizations. I think ancient aliens may play a part, but I think ancient civilizations could too.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot what it was. One of those history discovery, but someone replicated. They figured out a way to using the sun and some other stuff, and they basically were able to melt stone with it, like a laser would do. They got something so
Vitrify.
hot that it would just liquefy the stone. So if you have that technology, I guess that's why carve it when you can just go, okay, put the stuff around it, we'll liquefy it, and it'll just melt down perfectly, and it'll be even. As far as the polishing is concerned, again, I mean, considering that you have a ton of sand around there, it's sandblasting. But did it look like that when they first cut it? Or was that because sand's blowing through everything and it's just getting caught in it? You know what I'm saying? When, it's kind of like sea glass. If you let wind, air, and sand come together, you're going to create a smoother substance.
Yeah, like by polishing stone in that regard. And what they were doing to polish the stones at Stonehenge, they were slightly chipping off because you found tonnage, very, very small chippings, and then they would kind of make it very, very smooth. I remember showing Brian Forrester around Avebury and showing him highly polished sarsen stone that is so, so smooth to the touch. It is really, really smooth. You can put your hand over it and it's smooth. I mean, what you're seeing at stone circles across the British Isles and Brittany and further besides, they look very rough. They look very grey. That's thousands of years of British weather for one, and erosion. So they were very, and also, in the 19th century at Stonehenge, sadly so, you could buy a hammer from the local town called Amesbury and then take it to Stonehenge and start chipping off bits of chunks to take home. That's why the stones are all a very odd shape, because they all believed 100 or so years ago, you take a piece of that stone home and it's healing. And that's why they were selling hammers there and people were going crazy. They've estimated tonnage has been taken through its healing properties at Stonehenge.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, side note, everybody's busting me right now. I put the soda underneath the table so that way I could pop it open without that loud hiss. And now everybody's giving me a hard time for keep your hands above the table.
I can't help but think of the character of Tiny Tim or some little get your free Avery stones, mate. Let's go. It's just screaming.
That's a very good English accent. I like that.
Whatever. It would be great.
Maria, I have a question. Since we've been talking about like the earlier cultures and later cultures, maybe in some instances, the earlier cultures were more advanced. Let's get your view on the original builders of Stonehenge. When did they do that? Can you provide a description of the people and who came later? What were the cultural changes?
Absolutely. I mean, when we look to the very earliest people that occupied the area of Stonehenge that we're looking at now, we're looking at the outer lintel there, and that single stone at the top is a greater trilithon, who's the largest stone at Stonehenge. But when we look at the people that built it, that were buried in the what's called long barrows of the Neolithic, they had very long skulls. And there seems to be two types of long-skulled people. You have the natural long-skulled, elongated people, and then you had a kind of hierarchy there that extended their skulls through cranial deformation. And so when you extend a skull with boards, you get two distinctive scars here down this part of the face. And that's what was noticed by anthropologists. So I think and it's for sure that the aDNA proves this, ancient DNA, that the long-skulled people built Stonehenge, and they were quite short. The femur bones show that they were no more than women 4'9", and the men 5'4". The much taller people came in what's called the Bronze Age, about 2500 BC, and they were very tall, and they kind of changed Stonehenge and tried to make it theirs by changing stone settings and things, because it's always baffled archaeologists. Why has Stonehenge gone through so many changes? And they're coming around to my way of thinking, because the beaker culture, as they're called, or the very tall people, giants, as some people say, I think there were maybe a few, but nonetheless, they came in after the long-skulled people and started to change the stone settings at Stonehenge, making it theirs. And so the original people that built Stonehenge really did have long skulls. And I photographed them at Cambridge University. I've photographed them at Oxford University. And I've gone now to several different museums and curators to look at these different types of skulls. And I've been saying this, since 2015, when I first discovered one of the long skulls. And we've got you wouldn't have heard about her in America. She's quite a famous archaeologist called Professor Alice Roberts. And she's now saying they were long skull people. Well, Alice Roberts, Maria said it first.
Yeah, it's most people. Well, most of the ladies will blame that the reason why the Stonehenge is all screwy and is because every man back then didn't ask for directions. I'm not asking. I know I got this one, honey. I got this. Please just ask for directions once. But yeah, there's the giant theories. The long skull found all over. A lot of them in South America.
Absolutely.
Not the ones that look like tiramisu, cakes that they showed recently. Down in Mexico, the Mexican mummies or whatever.
Oh, but,
yeah. Because it looks like someone went to like an Italian wedding and made just a tiramisu cake out of, oh look, it looks like an alien, type of thing.
Now, do you think the elongated skulls, like that binding process to elongate the skulls, do you think there's any possibility that might have been a ritual type thing inside of the circle?
Well, we don't know where they extended their skulls. It had been done as a child when the skull was very pliable, before the sutures had become fixed, because you see them in children. So we know that they had natural long skulls anyway, and then some of the elite were extending them, and that created a two-tier system. And so what we've got here in ancient England, for example, is huge long skulls. They are very extended, but here's the thing. Even though they had very long skulls, their skull size to their body, when you've got artists or designers of clothes, they say that the face is 1/8 to the body size, and that's how you design clothes and things, and artists draw. But to the elongated skulled people, their skulls were 1/10, so they were much smaller but long skulled to a body my size. So they would have looked out of proportion when you stack all of those measurements together from places like Oxford, like Cambridge. They would have looked a very strange culture. You'd have done a double take on them. And somebody flashed up there. I briefly read that they had red hair in Paracas. Brian Forrester has constantly mentioned this. Some in the British Isles had red hair, and some had quite dark hair. And it's believed now that they had quite dark Mediterranean looking skin as well. And it was the much, much taller Bronze Age people, the Beaker culture, very tall people that had lighter skin and more blue eyes. And interestingly, in the aDNA, the ancient DNA, when these two cultures met around about Orthodox dating, 2500 BC, they didn't interact with each other for 500 years. That's the latest research. So why did you get these two cultures? They didn't interact for 500 years. And then, says Professor Ian Barnes, there was a tipping point, and then they started to intermarry. And then we lose the ancient DNA of the long-skulled people.
And there we have it, folks. Don't do that. Don't marry outside of it. Don't marry outside of this. Everybody's like worst nightmare. I can't believe you're marrying that giant. But I love him, Dad. Yeah. It's well. This goes back to I think we talked a little bit about it, Book of Enoch at one point. I don't want to get too crazy, but there's so much history that you can't like live life this way and like, nope, this is what the fossil record is. Nope, I'm not. No. Well, I looked it up or researched it. I didn't find any instrument. No, look outside the box. There's plenty of people that are doing this research. They're not being published directly. You got to go search. Not necessarily on the internet as proper. It's on these bulletin boards, it's on these other groups, Telegram, so and so forth. Open your mind, and the possibilities will come in, and you'll be surprised that you'll start, like, well, I was skeptical until this came in. There's no connection, and they're proving each other. So, but this is great, fantastic book, and information. I mean, you got to go out and get these books.
Yeah. And we have to get into the differences between the long burrows and mounds.
Well, yeah, let's touch on that before we wrap it up for.
Yeah, absolutely. The oldest monuments in the British Isles are called, as I mentioned earlier, Neolithic. And you have huge long barrows. And for those that, in the United States, and they don't know what a long barrow is, imagine a huge piece of earthen works. And they can be up to 390 feet long. Yeah, some of the longest ones. And some of them have inside inner chambers. And these inner chambers can be megalithic, or they could be of timber, for example, depending on what's around. And these are massive monuments. And you were mentioning earlier that they have acoustic properties. A lot of the long barrows had acoustic properties. So I'm going to take you to Scotland now, and we're going to go to Campster Long and Campster Round. That's the name of the barrows called locally. And you have one long barrow and one 100 meters away. I know that you do imperial still, and I don't know the imperial to that. It's 100 meters away. And if you had a drum session in Campster Long and you're in Campster Round, 100 meters away, the sound of the drum would come out of the ground sounding like thunder. And that has been found by the Reading University duo that went around different ancient sites looking at acoustic properties. So we know that the twinned barrows within 100 meters can exchange acoustic properties as well, which is quite intriguing. So these ancient Neolithic long barrows, for example, there we go. That's a beautiful finished off cairn that we're looking at. They are absolutely incredible, and you can stay in these. And even today, you can go to some of these monuments and recreate acoustic sounds in them.
And there's the doorway in that picture that people could see.
That's right. That's the entrance that you would go through. Now you're in sensory deprivation in these mounds and tombs as well. So you don't see much daylight unless you look out. And if you look the other way, it's very dark, and you can get recesses within certain long barrows that you can't see outside. So they do create this kind of sensory deprivation that can change your consciousness. And they're often finished off in kind of quartz or flint or chalk, creating these snake-like monuments that they're monumental, and they really do stand out on horizon lines in the ancient landscape. They are absolutely stunning.
I
I
don't know
think
if
that's one of the biggest things, real quick, before Brian, or just before you there, that for me is whatever it is, whether it's they've seen something that came down from the sky or it was something that in the past, but every ancient culture has something to do with an obsession of snakes.
serpents. Yeah.
Everything is, like I said, it's whether it's the carvings of, there's carvings, what, Chinese dragons. I mean, you have right here, these cultures, they built it. If you just look at this picture right here, it has an appearance of the tail going up to a head. They have, in the mounds, there's that real famous one. Mark might be able to help him, or
Serpent
Brian.
mound.
Serpent Mound, but it's, I can't remember the location. I'm not sure where that's
Peebles,
located.
Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one clearly looks like, looks like a snake.
Oh,
And
absolutely. And you've got
Yeah.
you've got an equivalent of a Serpent Mound in Oban in Scotland. But also, just to add to that, that's what you can see. According to the ancient Chinese feng shui masters, you had dragon lines in the earth. And these dragon lines were massive earth currents, and these were aligned on those currents as well. So these kind of monumental serpentine monuments were placed above serpentine earth currents that the ancient Chinese called green dragon, or the azure dragon, and white tiger. And they were forces that created energy coming out of the ground. They even today, Chinese geomants and dowsers like myself look for those dragon lines in the ground.
I mean,
Wow.
I would welcome. I don't know if you've come to the northeast of the United States at all, but it's pockmarked with these stone chambers. They're incredible. They're very mysterious. There's someone who's in the paranormal, and she's written books on it, and she's absolutely wrong. It is not Native Americans, food cellar or root cellars at all.
No.
They are lined up astronomically. There are anomalies internally. There's sound anomalies. There's magnetic anomalies. They still don't know what it is. I mean, and some of them, I've been in a couple of them, and when you go in, it's 10 by 10, 10 feet by 10 feet by, 9 feet tall. And when you look at the back, stone that's there in the center, which looks like a door, look at it with the naked eye, there's nothing on it. But if you put a UV light on it or infrared, you'll see runic writing on it. You'll see, 4 characters, which earth, wind, fire, water.
I mean, yes, the stone chambers of New England, they were investigated by John Burke, for example, who wrote an iconic book, Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty. And he found if you put seeds into these stone chambers and then you replanted them, they would grow twice as strong and twice as fast. Now, I think that is correct, but I add into that mixture of knowledge that the earth energy there, which is a spiral pattern, it's when you place chambers over that spiral pattern, the coil of the dragon to the ancient Chinese, that's what enhances seed growth. So he placed seeds in all of those chambers in New England, and you could have much better crop yield proper acreage with that. But I just go that one step further and say they put it on the coil of the dragon, as they would do in ancient China, and dowsers would know from way, way back, centuries before. So I think these places were multifaceted. They were spiritual, they were practical, they were taking you through different dimensions to a certain regard. They're not just one thing, they're a multifaceted diamond.
Well,
Yeah.
this has been incredible.
Yeah,
No. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, and I just wanted to read from this book, Aubrey Burrell's, The Stone Circles of the British Isles. Mr. Burrell writes, the probability is that they, the Beaker folk, had some share in the inspiration of them all, and the raising of these temples throughout Britain is further proof of the widespread religious conformity that this people was able to impose. Physically very different from the slighter, gracile Neolithic stock, these powerfully built foreigners first came to the country at the beginning of the second millennium and settled around the mares and islets of eastern Britain before eventually moving inland and up the rivers, etc. So, in 1976, when he published this book, he's basically saying the same thing you are. Why are you, being censored?
It's very strange, I suppose, because I just take it one stage further by increasing the height, by saying that they're more long skulled, they've got very different ear placements. So, for example, if you read the reports from anthropologists, they describe a skull like this, but instead of having ears here, mine's beneath my hair, obviously, then their ears were off place. And so they could have had a mythical, fairy-like, pixie-like appearance. And they don't want these anomalies known. So I think I pushed the boundaries a little bit more. And also what I noticed about the elongated skulls, they were like the same size of a child's, of somebody about 12 years old. Now put a 12-year-old skull on an adult body and it becomes completely out of proportion. And that is, if you go to any of the anthropologist reports, that happens time and time again. Now, I sent one report to a wonderful doctor. She works in what we call A&E. I can't remember what you call it in America. We call it accident and emergency. It's where if you have an accident, you go there. And I showed her these reports of the inner ear bone structure and said, what do you make of this? And she said, that's impossible. That's not how a human inner ear is. And I said, but what if it was? What if it was, when they would hear different frequencies? So what I think the perception of the ancient elongated people of the British Isles was, they could hear different frequencies and understand things a little bit differently. Their perception of a stone circle would have been more auditory. Yeah. And with my experiments done on standing stones, looking at the frequencies coming out of standing stones with Rodney Hale, that used to work on the Dragon Project, and David Webb, for instance, we got certain points on the stone that were 18 hertz being emitted by the stone, and people hear at 20. And I think the elongated skulled people could hear different frequencies coming out of the stones that we've measured. So maybe we look at standing stones, maybe they heard standing stones.
Uh-huh.
And then real quick, Alan was, as we wrap it up here, he wanted to know about the common thought of Stonehenge being geared around farming. What your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I mean the whole of the landscape was cleared, that is for sure, for trees, because snails, different types of snails like different type of environment. So it was definitely cleared. But I think it was far, far more than just farming. It included, for example, very complex lunar alignments, far, far more than the sun. Now, I've written about them in The Secret History of Stonehenge, and lo, after I've had that, they announced yesterday that the major alignments at Stonehenge were lunar. But before that, they were always talking about the summer solstice, for example. Aubrey Burl noticed as well that there was a lot of lunar alignments. So it's an astronomical temple as well. That's in a huge environment that contains Woodhenge. You've got a fantastic Woodhenge in Cahokia, Illinois, if I've got the state right. And it was very similar to Woodhenge over here, but ours was a bit more kind of more concentric circles on the inside. So Stonehenge is a massive environment that surrounds it, mile after mile, monument after monument.
Awesome.
Like Oklahoma Nano said, very wise. I enjoyed her knowledge tonight.
Oh,
Yes.
well, thank you.
Couldn't think of a better final guest either. That's what I said. That's that's part of the announcement here, folks. I said just to get cluing people in there. Yeah, it's everybody need to go to the Avebury experience because we need to let this poor soul go to bed. Yes, it's a. So I'm going to share up here. So everybody needs to go to the Avebury experience.
2:30 in the morning there.
Yep, the aveburyexperience.co.uk.
Thank you.
And the book that we're talking about right here, Secret Here, History of Stonehenge. Find out what the Crown doesn't want you to know. Yeah, Mark's got there. Yeah, you can go to the cards right there. You can purchase everything right from there. So if you've enjoyed this, definitely not only that book. We've been talking about the elongated skulls. She has a book on that. You just go through and just divining. I mean, if you want to watch one of the last shows we did with her, we talked a lot about dowsing and dowsing rods and stuff that the experience she has with that. And there's Mark's got that book as well. So
Yes,
Maria, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate
it. Great. Thank you for asking great questions and being the perfect hosts.
Well, appreciate that very much.
You have a good morning, evening, no morning.
Yes.
Have a good morning.
Enjoy your Thursday morning.
And a lot of tea, Earl Grey tea in a few hours.
Yeah, she'll need that. She'll need that when she wakes up, for sure.
I'm going to go to bed.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Best of luck with the book there for you.
Thank you, Maria. Good night.
Good night.
Cheerio. Good night. Cheerio.
All right, everybody. So, big announcement. So, next week is going to be the final episode of the Three Beards podcast. Life has just come to the thing of just I'm working a ton, as you can notice. Chris hasn't been able to make it on. His life is just chaotic. I'm gonna still do 2 shows with Joey, the Sinister Mysteries, and the Mighty Phoenix might arise from the ashes at some point. It's just right now it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things where, the saying is always is go out on your terms, go out what you'd consider on top. And so, like for right now, it's just we got family medical stuff coming up, and it's just personally, like in truth, I know it's shown. I know it's shown on the show. People have read it. I'm not as prepared as I normally am. I feel like I've mailed it in on several of the shows. I can't. Like I said, it's one of those things. The it'll be Into the Outer Realms. Ert Radio is going to be sponsoring as well. He's going to stick with with the Sinister Mysteries. He's doing that stuff, and then we'll be sharing that on there. Brian's going to share his stuff. Here this thing.
Yep, I got
It's
a new thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to
yeah.
try to
It's a weird thing. The third eye live. I go.
Third Eye Live.
It's not FDA approved yet because something about taking the cadaver eyes and implanting it in your head, right in the forehead. It's an experimental process. I mean, let's just say, I could think of a lot of things where I would have spent my time and energy on than just trying to figure out how to implant a third eye into your forehead. But he's doing the live third eye.
Yeah, I mean, come on, we all enjoy the paranormal, and I research, I go out and investigate these things, but we can't always talk about paranormal. We can talk about mysteries that they're pretty interesting, but when you use your third eye, you're talking about your consciousness, and it allows you, like, how does that third eye operate in doing a podcast, doing playing music, writing music, painting, literature, speaking, and it just gives you a different field of view, and hopefully we'll do that, and then someone named Craig will come back with a vengeance and just shave this part of his mustache off and this half of the beard, and
Yeah.
it'll be a kind of beard live.
Yeah. No, like I said, it's not gonna. Like I said, I'm still gonna be on. I'm still going to Facebook, and it's like you'll still see me share. It's like I'm gonna be doing at least 2 with Joey,
Yep.
as just kind of thing. It's like I'm not going cold turkey. It's just for me, it's just you. It was one of those things. It started with Austin, Chris, and me. It's just, and we did this thing as the trio, and then when Austin fell out, Brian stepped in, as amazingly as to help us out. Mark can't even. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on, and hopefully he can make it here next week too for the grandfather. We can reminisce about the stuff, just all the ones, just all the fun stuff that we've gone through, all the stuff that we've come through. So maybe we can even, if Austin's available, maybe we can even convince him to come back on, to the thing too. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, it's hard, but I can tell you, everybody, the more I think about it, the more I'm at peace that this is the right decision to do. Yeah,
Well,
it's kind of like, it's been fun. It really has. It's been, like I said, you guys have really looked forward to talking to everybody, and it's not. Like I said, it's not good. It's not a long goodbye. It's not like, I'll never see you guys again. It's just, it's one of those chat will still be there. Jump into the Outer Realms, watch the Sinister Mysteries with stuff, and I'll be on there. Chat with her. I'll share that when I'm on. But it's one of those. Yeah, it was time. It was time,
well,
and it just.
I'm not Craig or Chris or Austin or Mark, so my vote really doesn't count, but I'm saying just take a hiatus. I've been pushing, take a hiatus. Don't just.
Yeah, he's been pushing to stay the course, but I'm just
No, we need. I mean, like, everybody kind of needs a break. So a lot of shows go dark in the summer, and people aren't listening to these shows in the summer. Doing a lot of reruns or whatever, but I don't think you should take. I know you've been doing it a while, and just throw it out the door. Never say never. And who knows? Maybe you just change the whole thing up, and it's Craig and Joey back on Three Beards. Who knows? But I wouldn't throw that away. Yes, it is hurricane season coming up in Florida. It's going to be a bad one too. It's
But
going to suck.
Yeah.
I understand that you have to take time off for family situations. You don't want to just do a show but put out crap. That's where you're kind of really letting your fans down that help to build a show up. Uh, I'm glad to have you two on, or the whole Beard uh, co-hosts on any of the shows I'm doing. But there are times when you just have to step away and take care of some things. Cut back for a little bit, but
Mhm.
keep your foot in the door to
Oh, it's not. We're not
bring
shutting
some
this.
quality stuff to the show. Because I think in the 3 years or so that we've worked together, I think we've built up a really uh, informative, entertaining, quirky, kind of show.
I,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Ron suggested that. Brian suggested, it's like I said, they've done it. I said, I think that is definitely a possibility. It's like right now, I've got to step away and just,
that's not a doubt. That's why I'm saying, and
Yeah.
look, I'm not here trying to convince you. You're going to do it. This is your baby. I appreciated being asked on. And I'll always, come back when you come back. You want me?
Yep.
I'm there.
Yep.
Because I have the cool rim shot. But again,
yeah, that's a
everybody
good
needs
chance.
break,
It's it's a good chance. It's long, but the format. It's like there is one thing. It's kind of like where I kind of dropped the hint. I'm really looking at not doing as many. If we do come, it would be not doing a lot of stuff where it's just constant, just interviews. To where it's going to be more just shows. Either talking about a topic or just going back to kind of thing.
Dialogue.
But it's just, yeah.
Well,
It's just
that works because you bring an interesting perspective, an informed perspective. It's not just
Yeah.
just like the sixth grade girl slumber party. As one of the shows I listen to, talks about is you don't say
the
anything
magnet.
of importance. You do.
Yeah, that's in truth, it's always just been kind of a little bit of a bummer for us too, just how you do all this effort and it has been a slow grind and it's just taken forever to build. But in August it would have been 6 years. I mean, it's like I said, we've given it the good old college try. We've definitely had a lot
It's
of good
more
ones.
than a try.
I would think maybe next weekend, since it may be the last show, we would be having hookers and blow. Am I close?
Yeah, I can't even begin to think.
Everyone's going to be wondering who left that baggie there.
Yeah. Well, it's just it's
probably the same person that leaked the Dobbs decision. We can't find him.
Yeah, Laura, I said M.A. Allen, King, you guys have been,
they're all
just
along.
You're always here. You're always supportive, and we can't think. Jerem was in here too. I mean, it's there. I can't even begin to thank you guys enough for the support. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like this isn't the end. Like you said, this isn't the last thing you're going to ever see of us. It's one of those, I just want to let everybody know next step week is the one. It's like, it's going to go dark for a while.
Right after next week.
Yeah. And then, you're going to see, like, I'll share, like, tomorrow I've got a Sinister Mystery show, and then 2 weeks, we've got another one. Those are going to come on. But I just wanted, especially since you guys are here, I just wanted to let you guys, let you know this is not. Yeah. I'll be crying in the beers. Well, and it's like, is that also, I can't tell you how much that I appreciate that, because it's like, I know you guys welcomed us into your house, into your lives too.
Can I use guilt on you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You appreciate them, but yet you're fucking them by not doing another show.
But
there you go. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
I'll return on it to you. It's because I got to focus on family.
No. I trust me. We've had this conversation off air enough, and it could totally change. You
Yeah.
know, there could be a moment where you're like, you know what, that's a great idea. We're going back on, and
Yep.
something as a relief to doing something. But there is a niche. It's just getting it. You know, I get it. 6 years is a long time. You know, you wonder how people like doing stupid pranks. You know, they just get 100 million people to view them, and then just
Yeah.
do more stupid shit. And then people that are actually trying to put in a good quality show, it's, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's date, if it's timing, if it's, you know, the look, the feel. I have no idea, but I understand. So, you know,
Yeah.
but
And
I'm there.
I've shared right there the link. That's yeah, it's like I said, we're still there. It's like definitely go follow Joey, follow Brian. I said these things are we're still going to be putting out content. Yeah, it's well, that's the thing about me and Joey, especially like Sinister Mysteries. There's not really a driver's seat. We're both back and forth. It's almost like the banter back and forth live where we're talking like tomorrow we're talking about the explosive rise of Barack Obama, how he went from obscurity to, you know, the ultimate power in the universe.
That should be an interesting show to watch.
And so that's what that's what I said that's what we're gonna talk about. And you know, so a lot of those ones, yeah, you can definitely go back and watch those things because this is episode 35 of that one. Yeah, and that's one of those. Yeah, it's definitely. But like I tell everybody, don't worry. It's like it's not. This isn't a forever goodbye. This is
Yep.
just I've got to step aside.
And while you're signing up and subbing for somebody, sub to this channel because this is where it's going to be. Third Eye Live and anything and everything I do, even Beyond the Realm, anything I did with Bronx Hill Paranormal Society, everything's going to be on my YouTube from this point forward. I'm not promoting 15 YouTube channels. That, you know, because having it's all over the place. I'm condensing it into me and my channel and just do it in subgroups. But I mean, it's going to be fun, you know.
Yeah, it's
Joey made him a
no.
better offer.
Yeah, it's we could definitely promote it. Like I said, definitely follow Urt Radio, follow Brian's thing, follow Barbara DeLong, so you can see as there's stuff going in. It's as I said, keep supporting everybody. It's like I said, I'm gonna still shape those things, but it's definitely, you know, and that's the thing. It's just it's the right time. It's like I said, we'll get that there. But it's one of those. So everybody, tune in next Wednesday. We're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be a party.
And make sure you keep your phones on because Craig is buying somebody a brand new Ford Mustang. Before we go.
That is called a bogus promotion.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Yeah, but like I said, well, I'll be sharing stuff to you. Like I said, this isn't going to go completely dormant. It's just be twice a month instead of 4 times.
All by myself.
That's right. But everybody, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Urt Radio, proud sponsor. Mark Nightlight, go support him, please. You know, they said doing God's work, keeping it from being dark. Nightlight, it's doing their job. Like I said, go Third Eye. You know, get on the waiting list. Maybe you'll be able to get that once they get the implant process approved. You'll be able to get that one in your forehead.
I'm telling you, it's going to be totally different because we're going to have, like we did with Nana. We called her up. If we have somebody on a psychic or a tarot reader, you're going to be able to call in and we're going to say, no, you're going to be doing a couple of readings for people. We want people to interact with it. You know,
Nice.
I'm tired of these. You know, it's great to watch a good show and whatever, but it's also like you have questions. It'd be nice if people can, you know, call in and want the new car. Yeah. Talk to Greg.
Yeah.
You know, it's just I want to be able to talk about whatever we want to talk about, you know, and
Get everyone on. Yeah.
I'm also looking into, like, you know, don't be surprised if I drag Craig into one of my shows and while we're waiting for, you know, him to get the epiphany or the bug of his ass after everything is fine and done, you know, to come back and
Thank you, Harlan. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the support.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Now, is there a difference between whether you get the left or the right eye from the cadaver? Do you get a better
I have no
you
idea.
get a better third eye experience?
You know what? I don't know that. I don't know that.
Yeah, maybe depending on, you know, the deceased donor, you know, whatever dominant eye they were, you know, it works out better. That's the better eye to get, you know, implanted. All kidding aside, definitely support him. So
yeah, I mean, I do have a promo. I think I posted on Facebook. I don't want to give you 3-minute promo, but I do have that, and it's on my YouTube page if you want to see it. So
thank you, Ron. Really appreciate that. And, you know, at Oklahoma, where nobody's getting tired of, you know, you people following.
No.
It's like I said, please,
no.
keep, like I said, entertainment. Just all we're doing is I'm shifting it to Thursdays now, twice a month. And then whenever Brian, like I said, we're going to go here, and I've already told him, share it to this too. Share it to Three Beards Podcast. You don't go.
You were working on getting that done so that, you know, at least you'll get content and stuff.
Yeah, this is not going. We're not shutting this down. This is going to still be here. This is going to be, like I said, it's just one of those as a weekly.
You need a break. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. Take the break.
That's what it is.
Okay, he's going into drug rehab. All right.
As you can see, I'm a meth head. You can clearly see all the weight loss. He's on meth. I'm just, can we all relish in the fact that Mark Eddy was not electrocuted tonight? Okay,
yes,
he survived.
Yeah, we'll find out a little bit more from Joey how he weathered the storm, literally tomorrow night.
Yes. Yeah, everybody join. Like I said, I'll be sharing here, but everybody join over, and I said, you know, come join the conversation there and learn. You know, you might learn a few things that you never knew about Barack Obama. That's, like I said, we're just FYI, we're not dealing with the whole, you know, whether Michelle is a woman or a man. We're not going to be really talking about the birther controversy that the Clinton campaign started. We're not going to be talking. We're not going to focus on that.
Yeah,
it's going to be, just to give you a teaser, it's going to be how, even in the beginning, how he pulled Chicago style politics to become a state senator, you know, and just went, and how you go from being a community organizer to, you know, in less than 20 years, you're the president of the United States.
He was groomed.
And that's, like I said, it's definitely going to be a, you know, really interesting topic. And like I said, so we're not going to, there won't be really any of the, you know, there's not going to be really any of the really outlandish, you know, conspiracy stuff, but it's going to be basically talking about the true thing, you know, Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn, Weather Underground, all that. Yeah, it's going to be pretty. So tomorrow, 7:00 Eastern time. And then took him how long to get president? He was elected state senator in 96. And then he went from being a state senator in 1996 so in 12 years time, he was president of the United States, which is an incredible trajectory to go from being never holding political office to suddenly you're the state senator and president of the United States.
Not if it's rigged.
Yeah, well, that's what it's. So it's definitely, it'll be cool. So there's a little teaser. So join in that, and then look for when Third Eye goes live.
Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Well, I'm gonna go live in May.
He's stealing our time slot.
No, I'm holding the time slot.
There you go. Good job. I appreciate that.
To lose it. But I got into Facebook jail, so I think I'm not allowed to go live on Facebook until the 5th of May. So
so what you do is you go live with us.
Well, I'm going to try that, but
yeah, it should work. But All right, everybody. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. We will see you next week.
Yes, sir.
If as long as you can have it, so that way I'll talk to Austin to see it. But it definitely, like I said, I'm going to force Chris to be on it regardless. He needs to be.
Thanks.
So
Thanks for the opportunity of co-hosting tonight.
oh, it's
Well, you're not going anyplace, Mark. I'm
Nope.
stealing you.
yes. Everybody's got to have a Marquetti.
Yes.
Like I said, but everybody raise a glass for for us. I said we'll do next. We'll do one next week. Like I said, we'll have a good time. Let's talk about all the fun, all the things like I said that we've done, and just we'll have a good time. It's gonna be a nice party.
Can we have someone come on in and be the roast master, and then just everybody roast us?
Oh yeah, I don't care. If Mark wants to do that, if he wants to come up with the stuff, I mean that's the thing. I can take it. I mean, everybody was joking about my hands underneath the table tonight. I mean, it's just I can take it.
By the way, this episode is sponsored by Easy Glide.
Yeah, Easy Glider, as Jaron brought up again, the thing from Chris, Dildo Palace.
Dildo Palace.
See, that's the kind of stuff we got to remember. We got to joke about. It's the long saying thing. Mermaids, they're magical, mythical creatures. And I knew Chris hadn't done a damn thing when it came to research. I knew the train was coming off the tracks right then and there. The only thing he knew was Little Mermaid from Disney. That was it. So
yeah, well,
blow up dolls. Yeah, Brian never. Speaking. Well, yeah, we'll talk about it. Brian never released he promised to release blow up dolls.
I wanted
to, and he never did it.
I couldn't get enough blow up dolls to do it. So, I was surprised that down in Florida, blow up dolls were pretty expensive.
I don't know if Oriental Trader has them. You got to get just the cheap knockoff ones.
Well, I was gonna put like weights at the bottom, and I have the helium tanks, and I was just gonna all release them once. Just to hear it on the news report would have been hysterical. And somebody released 300 sex dolls over.
Oh yeah, that would have been on WFLA news right away.
I probably would have been in handcuffs. Like, why'd you do it? Because you know what? You never miss an opportunity.
Flying beavers.
An opportunity.
That's your problem. Helium.
Well, the thing is, I was going to write Watch Three Beards podcast on each one of them. So that when they. Yeah,
except one of them would deflate, land on somebody's windshield, cause a massive car pileup all on I-75, and then all they're going to find is the one that says, Three Beards podcast.
I just think it would be fantastic.
So I guess that we'd go out like Seinfeld, all of us getting arrested.
Probably. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
End the show as bad as Seinfeld did. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I don't know. It would. Yeah. We're gonna work on these things.
That's right. I blame Brian.
I blame Brian too.
No,
like they said when I was born, they broke the mold right over my head. So.
Yeah, no. Like I said, that's one of the things. Nobody's at fault. No, everybody. All right, we got to run. I got junk to get out of the street for yard waste day. I got to haul it out of the house. So, all right, everybody, have a great evening. We will see you on the next episode, which will be we'll save it for next week because Brian loves that sound so much. So I'm going to save that one. But just in honor of his thing, we're gonna play the one that Brian created for this one. So everybody, have a great night. Have a great night. No, not that one. This one.